Agreement up with the city and the county so that there's a visual of how those funds are spent. As I mentioned, we also created this homeless
agenda items, but before we move to those items, those here, I wish everyone the best.
from tonight, once this council policy committee, the corridor committee,
Update?
I think the mayor had just requested it as a way to year end to close out the work. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank
Okay, until I get to my computer, we can move forward with the first
Yes,
committee
sir.
report.
We have here homeless and mental health. Sir, are you ready? Michael, there we go.
Greetings, colleagues. You'll see from the document that's uploaded to our work session agenda a two-page update that speaks to the purpose of our committee, the objectives that we identified early on, some of the successes and accomplishments, as well as some lessons learned. When Mayor Colvin asked for the homelessness and mental health committee to come together at the start of this first term, you know, I was excited to see that the city council was prioritizing this issue because we know that homelessness is very unique as many individuals that are out there is as many solutions as we'll likely need. Some folks are dealing with mental health. Some folks are on the brink of homelessness, living in their car, living in very pricey motels on a day-to-day rate, and they all require very different solutions. So we began by identifying the many partners that exist within our city. We were meeting every 2 weeks upstairs in Sandoval because we wanted to make sure that we moved the needle when it came to this issue. That's certainly was the expectation of this council. So along with Councilmember Hondros and Councilmember McNair, we identified 3 objectives, which includes, like I said, bringing in those partners, developing a greater understanding of the issues, and then creating some of the recommendations that you'll see today. So I think at this point it would be appropriate for us to mention the staff that worked with us, Assistant City Manager Oliveira, and of course, Director Colley over Economic Development. Were in every one of those meetings and made sure to help sort of guide us as we prepared this presentation. So Ms. Oliveira, is this a good time to have Chris present our year-long development?
Jennifer, I might need some help.
you. Should be down there.
Yeah, it's up, but does it show up on the screen?
It will. They're gonna pop it up here in just a second.
So while we're waiting for the presentation to come up real quick, my interim assistant director, Alex Baker, is going to come around and hand you all a pamphlet that is part of the work that the committee did that we'll talk about, but wanted you all to have that. Check, check. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So, Chris, in the interest of time, can you just state the
Yeah, let me just flip through here so I can kind of get my discussion points and we'll walk through this here. This presentation will be made available with the agenda packet after we look at it here. But since we're having a little bit of technical difficulty, we'll just go through here. So as Councilmember Benavente said, Mayor Colvin established this about 12 months ago to look at the entire spectrum of homelessness, to include people who are at risk of homelessness and those affected by it. The goal that they made and established for themselves early on was to come up with policy recommendations that City Council could or could not act on in order to address the issue. So some of the initial work we began in November of last year, developed that committee charter to guide it, created a partnership with the Continuum of Care, which is reputable service providers that work in homelessness, developed a deeper understanding of the coordinated entry system, and learned a lot about some of the successes and challenges of local partners like Alliance, Behavioral Health, Recovery International, the Housing Authority, and the faith-based community. The committee also followed the Day Resource Center as it opened up and developed an operational plan very closely, and monitored the impact reduction program, which is how we address some of our high-risk encampments that had public safety and health issues. Early on, the committee, as they were learning this stuff, realized that they needed to come up with educational materials. So there's 2 educational materials that are on our website, how to access the coordinated entry system and what that means and how that works. And then after some discussion tonight, we'll be putting our interlocal agreement up with the city and the county so that there's a visual of how those funds are spent. As I mentioned, we also created this homeless resource pamphlet here. In the interest of time, I had no intention to go through the pamphlet in detail with you. If there are members of the public who would like a copy of it, Alex has those as well. And so if you can jump to about 4, I think we'll be there. So, but the pamphlet does have a lot of great information. It talks about some of the challenges that we have, the resources that the city council provides. As we actually tallied all this stuff between us and the police department, we had quite a bit of resources in that document. So think about it like this, because my boss is the former budget director, she wanted to come up with like a budget in brief, but for homelessness issues. And so that's the document that you have in front of you. So from here, if you can just go 1 forward. So this was the Continuum of Care document that will be on our website that talks about the process of how people go through one coordinated entry so that we can prioritize the needs of those folks and that the people with the most acute needs are served first. Then go on, Jennifer. And this is the interlocal agreement that we have. So the city and the county have a joint partnership where we each contribute $100,000. And so it was important for us to try to explain to the community and to the policymakers what that looked like. So you can see here, one of the things that we found when we visually laid this out is one of the kind of common misconceptions was that the COC is represented here, but none of the arrows of money flow to it. So the COC is an entirely unfunded volunteer body that gets no government funds whatsoever, not from HUD, not from the state, county, or city. You can see here that HUD directly funds the county to do a COC coordinator position for about $28,000 a year. And then the rest of our money helps to fund a county analyst, some IT services, and then the county gets about $115,000 a year to provide direct relief. They've spent most of that money on hotel stays and short-term solutions like that over the past couple of years. All right, Jennifer. So moving to the recommendations, I'm just kind of briefly go over these, and then I'm going to ask the committee chair to kind of talk through that. Somebody's really in charge of coordinating homelessness in our community. So the committee came up with a recommendation to direct funding from that interlocal agreement to the Continuum of Care so that they can take over the federal grant from HUD and then eventually, take over the responsibility for administering that from the county, and then coordinate homelessness in our community. There's a lot of partners that need to be engaged, from the hospital system to our county counterparts to the school system, the court system, and that all really needs to be done by some central coordinating force. And when we looked and benchmarked other communities, that was what they had in place, was some group or a paid individual that was handling that and coming up with game plans for the community across that wide spectrum. The second recommendation was to work to reinstate the joint city county homeless advisory council. So that was a body that during conflicts came up. And so this is really something that committee said that they think is something that should be a focus for city council. And then the last request is one that was passed on by the Continuum of Care president, Ms. Debbie Brown, and that was to use our available affordable housing finance dollars to work at extremely low income levels with a focus on projects that have supportive services. I think the potential partnership with something like Step Up is a really good example of that. It takes a lot of resources and a lot of effort to help homeless folks, and they have a business model that works. So that's an example where council prioritized that. So with that, there's a little bit more that we have background information if council wants to delve into it on the funding for the first bullet. But before we get there, I just want to kick it back to the chair, and then Mayor, at your pleasure.
Thank you, Director Crawley. We're really proud of this sort of one sheeter, this pamphlet that we produced. We know there's many passionate members of our community who want to see the city council do as much as they can when it comes to homelessness. But as John F. Kennedy once said, ask not what the city can do for you, but what you can do for the city. And so we want to make sure that we're arming people with the knowledge and an understanding of exactly what's available so that they can also put their hand on the wheel, so they can help us sort of drive this vehicle to help improve the situation for folks that are unhoused in our community. So this is supposed to be a really good sort of first product for our committee. And when we brought in those many partners, including Ms. Debbie Brown, you know, we wanted to listen to the experts. We wanted to be responsive to what the folks who are on the front lines and the boots on the ground are saying that they could really benefit from. And this very first recommendation, y'all, is where I really want us to focus, answering any questions that make sure that everyone's comfortable with making sure that we fund a director for this continuum of care. We know that there's many, many groups that are working in this space, coordinating them all. It's just not something that I think is reaching the heights that we can when it's just on a volunteer basis. You know, this really can be a
Your tenure as committee chair have you seen and change of what we're doing to support our
yeah, that we wouldn't have gotten if we were just meeting bi-monthly, you know, here and there. I really put that on the staff and Councilmember Hondros and McNair for committing to that rigorous schedule and always being ready to take on. This is probably draft number 10, y'all. We had Lauren going over this 100 times with a lot of fine-tooth combs. So we wouldn't have gotten this far if we hadn't committed all the time and resources that this city council was ready to commit to the issue of homelessness in our city.
Follow-up question, if I could, Mayor. During, you know, this being an election season, it continued to pop up was our Day Resource Center. Because me personally, I think that is done a great deal for the community that uses it. Give me your thoughts once again on where you think the Day Resource Center and how it has not just the unhoused, but just those in need for refreshing every day, like showers and things along that line.
One of the things we identified early on is that folks that are dealing with homelessness have a difficult time getting out of that situation where they don't have their documents, they don't have good means of transportation just to be able to get all the services they need in a single day. Now that we've got a hub where they can get any identification or paperwork that they're missing, where they can get immediate services right down the hall.
They can get IDs there?
They can have the folks that are there to be able to help them with that. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so, you know, it's just a one-stop shop, you know, for us to be able to assist people so they're not having to go on 10 different buses all across the city. They can come straight downtown and get everything taken care of at once. So it's a game changer. So I'm looking forward to seeing other ways that we can support it because, once we've got a few good steps forward, luckily folks like Debbie Brown and the CSC have let us know what else we can do now. Let's not stop on rest on our laurels. We've got a lot of potential to move even further forward. I think having an executive director for the COC is going to be that next game changer that we can do in this area.
Thank you, sir.
So-
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Councilman Benavente, for informative report. I was going to Councilman Ingram, but I did have a question while we're waiting on her. If you can go back to the funding model, Mr. Collins. So,
Jennifer, do you have that? So if you move to the next slide here.
all right, so as we look at this, so it's 100,000 contribution from the city and county. I know
Yes,
it used to be 50 and 50, so it's 100 and 100 now?
I'm not sure. It's been 100 and 100 as long as I could go back, but about 2017-ish.
Okay, what
Yeah.
happened to, okay. So out of the 200, you're saying 115 roughly goes to hotel stay and that kind of, your office still gets calls for that. I know I still direct a lot of people there. Do we have a dollar amount that we spend on helping people? I know we help with some folks who were, what I'm finding is there's a lot of people in the community that are paying $70, $80 a night to live somewhere, and they're working, they just can't come up with the deposit, and they can't put a pause on the 70, put on a permanent place. And I know, we referred to a few people that you were able to help with the deposits. Talk about a little bit what community development is doing that is not captured right here.
Yeah, so this funding right here goes to the county and then they administer it and then they bill us for what they do, right? For our 50% portion of it. We have several nonprofits that we partner with that we pass grant funding to that helps provide support. We also help fund case managers for nonprofits so that they use other money for rental support. We've been pretty good about being able to connect people to the limited resources in the community. There is a limited number of resources in the. Do we want to continue the model of paying for the one-off hotels? That's a short term, or do we want to invest in the system so that we can hopefully get a better operating system?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Councilman Ingram.
So I think before the members that are actually on that committee before presented and they asked that they were going to the county allocated, from my understanding, I thought we allocated the money because they said that they were going to the county as well, or
So that they can professionalize, reinvigorate efforts to work with the county and to support affordable housing.
so we're
And
now
so-
getting to that place where we can do that.
Yeah, so the direction from council at the time was to remand that to this newly created committee. We have nonprofits come forward all the time asking for resources to have a council committee vet that and have an extended conversation and then make a recommendation. I think shows diligence from city council as a whole.
Okay. So then
Hard work and time and effort put into it. Kind of wanted to check in just so that the council's abreast across the board as to some of these, the progress and the great work that is happening on the committee level. So we'll try to keep it at a higher level to get a summary and capture a few questions, and then, because I know we still got several committees we need to hear from tonight. Mr. Manager, you had something? No, it was just an update from my understanding. Was this a formal recommendation? Did you have a formal recommendation? Oh, okay. Well, I missed that part.
Maybe in this situation, because we have a little bit further ahead than maybe some other committees that may not be good, I would appreciate
Appreciate it, certainly.
Yeah. Okay.
At least on the first one.
Right. And the first one was just to
Take the next
budget-
steps.
take the next steps
Exactly.
toward a budget.
That's
'Cause you
right.
know this is
That's
a
right.
mid-year.
Exactly right.
Okay, all right. So if you want to gather consensus on that, but council, I know there's probably a lot of ask with some of the other committees, so we'll try to keep it real high level. Again, let me get Mr. Hewitt first, and then I'll come to you, Councilwoman. Ms. Hewitt, you have something?
Yes, sir. Just go back to the recommendation. Since, I just want to make sure that we're clear about, I guess, the recommendations and council's clear as well. When we
Yeah.
look at the,
So Jennifer, if you can, yeah, here you go.
direct funding of COC so that we can hire professionals. The money for the direct funding is going to come from half of the money that we are currently sending to the county, the 92,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, sir. So this could be a budget neutral thing to have.
So this is not a general fund ask person, I mean, we're sending directly be a city contract or whatever.
So-
That would be. that's
So
also-
right now, if you take the funding from going to the county that they're using to do hotel stay and temporary vouchers, have you discussed that with the county as to what the impacts of that will be?
Chairman?
The short answer is yes, in part, nothing officially. But that's where we want to get the approval now from us so that the staff can have a more formal discussion so that so we can all have, the city and the county can have a clear sort of piece of paper that says everything. Right now, we floated these ideas, we've had these conversations in preparation. But if we say yes tonight, then we can finally.
So if the ask is to get a consensus, to have the conversation, that's an understanding that I have. I could probably support that. But if it is to remove it and reallocate it without talking to them, last thing I want is them to say, hey, we don't have any more money.
We're
for
not there
vouchers.
yet.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
the second point, Mayor, was the committee that you spoke of to reestablish the Joint City County Homeless Advisory Council. Who formed council was that?
It was coordinated, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
And I think you're part of the committee as well. There were some impediments to that meeting, and we just need to.
That, and certainly this discussion could be a perfect reason for us to come and meet again.
Okay.
All right. Well, it's the county's turn for that, and so far they haven't had an interest in that. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember, for the presentation, staff. I did have a few concerns. I know a shelter is well is providing. This was 2009? 19, I'm sorry, 2000, I'm sorry, 2019, I'm sorry, 2019, when I came on. No, I'm sorry. It feels like 2009, but since 2019, was advocating for a emergency shelter. That was the impression, as well as considering resources for the homeless individuals. I went to I visited the Day Resource Center this past weekend, and I had several concerns. I've had conversations with individuals that were present present. One of the main thing was a safety concern. There's currently one person, I guess you could say security guard, that's located there. There's been issues going on. I was told that one of the homeless individuals was chasing somebody with a machete. That was my first time hearing of the incident. And they are concerned as far as safety concerns, as well as the employees. There's been a lack of communication with Salvation Army. And I'll just say this is he say, she say. Communication, supposedly the other day it was cold. They were under pressure that they were going to have a white flag. Salvation Army did not have a white flag. The Day Resource Center was not open, allowing them to come in. So many of those individuals slept outside in their cars. Those who didn't have cars slept on the concrete. I'm hoping when we consider allocating funding, we look at some of those issues as far as providing additional or having our law enforcement patrol that area, utilizing a facility with some beds just in case as a backup plan if Salvation Army is not open, which they should be, and also a calendar with the dates, because when I went there, I didn't see any agencies. I didn't see anybody there providing any service. I had a conversation with one individual that they were helping people apply for Medicaid at that time. I think we need to have a calendar listing what on certain days, this is the agency that's providing services, because if I was a homeless individual and decided to come in there one day, if the agents aren't there, how do they know when to come back? So I think we need to consider those as some examples. And then also too, with the voucher, we know that's temporary. If they're receiving a voucher to stay in a hotel, what do they do after those dates? They back in the streets. And I know that it does somewhat fall on the county as far as them getting the funding. They're, in the process supposedly building a homeless shelter, but what are we gonna do until then? And that's why I would recommend utilizing that facility. I mean, we spent millions of dollars on that facility. I think that we should consider placing some beds in there for an emergency shelter, and also having a conversation with other agencies to see who can help us help these individuals, because that was the whole purpose of this Day Resource Center.
Yeah, I'm looking for him. Okay, gotcha. Should be on, Councilman.
Well, I certainly invite, Councilmember Bates, would love for you to join us at our next committee meeting. We're inviting a lot of partners in, including, Ms. Shelley Hudson over there, so that we can spend this next year working on exactly that. What are the next steps? What are some next level things that we can do? I know that today, just as far as this discussion goes, 'cause I know we have other committee folks to talk about. These are our recommendations. So hopefully we can get that director of funding for the COC today at least.
Well, and to kind of piggyback on that, and I know we have Councilmember Thompson, Ingram Hare, and then Jensen. Again, one of the things that Councilmember Banks McLaughlin it's only been open for a few weeks. I did ask the manager to have it where the operator or the contractor comes to present the council about and answer some of the questions. There are people who stop us, in various places and raise concerns. It's good you saw something and generated some really legitimate questions. But I think for today, the committee's focus was to get us a strategy to get to first base, because this is a comprehensive solution. But I think that an entire work session, or at least this on a light night where there's not a lot of other items, give us an opportunity to talk to the contractor about the hours of operation, the partnerships that exist. Because when we went to go see Oak City Cares, there was a number of providers that shared space in there. So I know they're still trying to work the kinks out, but that's a great time for that. But great points.
I would recommend each council member actually show up and go there. It's one thing to talk to a contractor, but show up where the people that's needing the help, because they have concerns. They're the ones facing homelessness. So I think we need to have those conversations with them as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Councilmember Thompson, Ingram, Hare, and Jensen, and then council will try to hear from, next committee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think what was said tonight is good. I visited the homeless shelter about 3 weeks ago, and I have a few concerns myself, but your analogy was good. Let's at least get it to first base because we're not ready for second base yet. So I'll yield my questions, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Ingram.
So, as I guess the district rep, I think Ms. Olivera might get tired of seeing me, because as soon as I leave the Day Resource Center, I head straight to her office, and I'm probably there twice a week. Sometimes I end up spending all day there, which trying to help out, which can, throw my day off sometime. So I'll run through this very quickly so you can kind of understand kind of what the conversation has been having. So security, there were major security concerns. It still remains security concerns. There was a switch over in security. However, that is still progressing. Emergency shelter, just like many of you, I was also shocked that we were not open for emergency shelter, because what I can say confidently is when we were going through this process in 2020, 2021, we were told that it would be emergency shelter. I think the caveat is we weren't specifically told what for. However, emergency shelter, we don't always control the plan. I don't think we control the plan at all for emergency shelter. That is the county. And so even if, from my understanding of asking these questions, even if we said we're going to open our doors for emergency shelter, I think it's up to the county to say we want that facility or not. Salvation Army, about a few weeks ago, the Salvation Army, and I feel confidently saying this, the Salvation Army did a reposition on our provider, and kind of put our provider in a very uncomfortable position in relation to how we help the people that are coming to get support, which prolongs them being able to get someplace to lay their head at night. So there does need to have a deeper conversation in how we're supporting the Salvation Army and the communication that is coming back from the decisions that they are making. I did talk about security, and so I just wanted to share, one, the homeless committee is doing a great job. Our staff is doing a great job. Are there still concerns? Absolutely. I think we've had some individuals that had to get like a 30-day break from going to the shelter because of civil issues of, wanting to cause harm to each other. And we all know mental health related. But I will say at the end of the day, it is working to help people. I'm hearing good still come out of it, even though we are still working through problems. So I'll lean on let's get through past first base, but I definitely would like to know more about how, if possible,
I know we've had that discussion was white flag, and I was just throwing that out there because I know that is a concern in the city as we deal with the wintertime. So just throwing it out there as an area of discussion. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I think you and Councilman Ingram were both correct. The county decides when there's a need for additional shelter. They reach out to us and we will open up one of our recreation facilities as needed. The Day Resource Center was designed for as potentially as an emergency shelter, but that was ideally for if we had a long-standing issues such as a hurricane or something else like that where we needed recovery afterwards. We had, but again, that would be decided in coordination with the county. Because how it works under our emergency management paradigm that we have is that the county will call us and say we need to activate a shelter. They will then staff it. They will then provide the beds, and they will provide the food. All we do is provide a room. When we had the most recent cold snap, I was in communication with the county manager, and the county manager made me aware that they were concerned about the capacity issues, and they reached out to us. And we were prepared to assist them if they had made a call to activate an emergency shelter. But Mayor, if I could, when we bring back the folks to talk about the Day Resource Center, it probably would be helpful too if we could have a short conversation with the county as well about how they activate the emergency shelters and how they staff them. Providing a location is one thing, but having something where you have people who are vetting who's coming in the door, who can sleep beside each other, who can't stay at the shelter, who has weapons, who may not have weapons or anything like that. The county has that system in place. But as you can see, we have a lot more work to do on homeless and mental health, and I think that speaks to the wisdom of having this committee stood up.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to go back to the ask. And first, before I have the question, y'all done a great job. Great job. Look forward to keeping it moving and good job. So my question is on the director. It is my understanding, what I have seen through the years, is that nonprofits that are on this board. How are we going to get this? Is this director going to be part of the nonprofits, or is it going to be under us? Is it, I think, and you don't even really have to kind of answer that, but I think that we need to be aware.
So I think the quick and easy there is that what we're looking for is not to hire somebody. We're looking to contract with this nonprofit COC to say, you need to get these milestones done in a year. And the best way to get that done is probably hire a professional with experience, right? So it's about the production of what we do. And so I think what I'm hearing is council does say we want to explore this further and bring something back for council action. We would be saying these are the milestones that we recommend for that funding.
Okay. I'm good.
All right. So, Council, before we move it, so Councilman Benavente is looking for consensus for support to move to authorize manager and Ms. Colley's department to get a contract that I guess they will bring back to council for execution and appropriations if council, ma'am. Okay, well, I'm not making a motion, I'm chairing it. So if there's a consensus, so Councilmember Ingram makes a motion, is there a second? All right. Any further discussion or questions on the ask or the motion at hand to contract with COC to redirect funds to come back with those milestones? All right, Councilor, look to you for action on that. All right, it looks unanimous. All right, good job, Councilman Benavente and McNair, and who else was on that committee? And Hondros, good job. And Councilman Banks McLaughlin, you've been a champion for this since 2009, so thank you. All right, corridors. Let's hear what you got.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would Councilmember Benavente. So successes and accomplishments. Our successes and accomplishments include 17 locations that have
Homeless shelters in Cumberland County overwhelmed and busing some people to the Triangle.
It's a developing story now at 4:30. Monique John with more.
Fayetteville officials say that despite this new resource center here for the homeless and the city's partnering shelters nearby, there weren't enough beds for people at White Flag shelters this week. They say that's why they work with city partners to organize a free bus ride on Wednesday for those living on the streets to head to the Durham Rescue Mission.
Our focus is on people, and we want to ensure that everyone had a warm place and safe place to sleep at night, specifically with the weather the way that it has been.
We try our best to never turn anybody away.
But some community advocates who were there say the city didn't clearly explain what people were getting into when they got onto the bus, saying some of the homeless didn't understand that the rescue mission required a background check and expected people to attend faith services and do chores around the facility. Critics also say some people on the bus didn't understand the city wasn't providing them with a ride back.
Nobody let them know that they could not help them if they came back. Nobody could confirm whether or not there was room for everybody.
Fayetteville spokesperson says that going to the Durham Rescue Mission was completely optional and that the city would provide a free ride back if it could.
If we had unlimited resources, it would be a completely different story, but we are working within the confines of what resources we do have available and trying to make the most of every opportunity.
More in the 5 o'clock hour. Monique John, ABC 11 Eyewitness News.
More than a dozen homeless people were moved from the Sandhills to the Triangle after the city of Fayetteville arranged for a bus to drop them off at the Durham Rescue Mission.
CBS 17's Justin Moore is live with more. Justin.
Yeah, for days, a representative from Fayetteville Police Department has been passing out a flyer to the unhoused community, promising them a better life at Durham Rescue Mission.
So I don't know what's going on.
14 unhoused men, women, and children loaded this bus Wednesday outside of Fayetteville Day Resource Center.
There are a lot of citizens in our community, unhoused citizens in our community, and they have nowhere to go currently.
Deanna Braggs is the homeless coordinator for the Fayetteville Police Department. She arranged for this Rockfish Camp and Retreat Center bus to drop these people off 90 miles away at Durham Rescue Mission.
I did meet with the Durham Rescue Mission to make sure it's a facility that's adequate and to make sure they would accept people from our community.
The move drawing outrage from some community activists, while a number of people within the homeless community decided against taking the trip.
If they can get people off the streets and out of the cold, then I would say it's a good thing.
Shane Taylor just finally got into a Fayetteville shelter after being homeless for months.
There's a lot of people out on the streets that just don't have anywhere to go. They just either sleeping under a bridge or sleeping in tents to try and stay warm.
I think the county cannot address homelessness on its own and by itself.
Heather Skins is the Assistant Cumberland County Manager for Community Support. Cumberland County plans to build a state-of-the-art facility that will serve as a housing and support center for the homeless. The county has been waiting for months for the city of Fayetteville to approve a special use permit to break ground.
It was taken to the city council at the beginning of December for a special use permit. It was continued until January to make sure there was enough time for notice for a public hearing.
Now, we reached out to the mayor of Fayetteville for comment on this move through the spokesperson for the city. They declined to comment. Live in Fayetteville, Justin Moore, CBS 17 News.
All right, Justin, thank you.
Well, as that group of people from Fayetteville works to make Durham their new home, leaders in the Bull City say they're extremely concerned about the busing situation.
But the Durham Rescue Mission says there's no need to worry. For several city officials like Mayor Leonardo Williams, the goal is to make sure those homeless individuals received sustained care so that they're not out on the streets again.
If we're recruiting homeless people to the area, and if they are being sustained and services provided, where are they going? And when we do our count, we are seeing them on our streets.
Leaders with the Durham Rescue Mission tell us that their goal is to keep people in shelter until they get back on their feet, but it's unclear where they would go if